And Bore da pawb, good morning and welcome to this multi-location meeting of the Environment, Regeneration and Street Scene Scrutiny Committee on the 14th of September 2023. I'm Councillor Sean Percy, I'll be chairing the meeting today. Can all members and officers present please ensure that their phones are switched to silent for the duration of today's meeting, please. In addition, when asked to raise your hand if members who are viewing virtually, could you do that electronically via Teams, and in the chamber, just raise your hands and we'll keep an eye out for you. For the purposes of declarations, I'd like to confirm that we'll be scrutinising on the Cabinet Papers items 7, 8, 9 and 10 today. So I'll now move on to item 2 on our agenda, which is declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest from members today?
I see no indications, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Tom. As usual, members, if you are aware you need to make a declaration during an item, just raise your hand and we'll deal with it then. Thank you. So we'll move over now to the Cabinet agenda papers for pre-decision scrutiny. So we'll start then with item 7 on the Cabinet papers, which is pages 17 to 48. So that's the amendment to the bylaw prohibiting cycling at Neath Memorial Gates. Okay, I've just been notified a member of the press has joined the meeting as well. Thanks, Tom. So before we go to questions on item 7, officers, do you wish to add anything to the report? Who's taking this one?
Nothing further to add to the report. I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you, Dave. The first question on this is from Councillor Tim Bowen. Tim?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you, Dave. Just a couple of questions on this. Concerned as Forces champion, I got a big outlook on the memorial gates and so forth. One, I can see in the report now that the main gates are going to be opened at certain times. My main concern is coming down from the knoll. It's quite a steep path coming down there, and a bit concerned the cyclists, inconsiderate ones, are going to be flying down there straight through the gates all the way down to the bottom. There's a possibility that we look at opening the 2 side gates, so they have to possibly get off to pass through the memorial gates. And also, are we going to be closing it for certain times of year due to the Battle of Britain, Remembrance Day, and is it going to remain closed for a couple of weeks while the wreaths are still there?
Okay, thanks, Tim. Dave, did you want to respond?
So, thank you, Chair. In terms of the report, this is a procedural report where we're going to consult on the removal of the prohibition of cycling. As it currently stands, to comply with the active travel guidelines, we would need to open the main gates there to comply with the Act. So we would need to, we probably wouldn't get supported if we were asking people to dismount at that specific location of the gates. That said, however, we would be at the period of the Remembrance Services and the Battle of Britain, we would be putting in road closures, so suspending the order to facilitate the events. Generally, that would mean that if the gates are to remain open, we would need to, after the Remembrance Service, position the actual wreaths that would be laid around the memorial walls there, so that the pedestrian and cycle access through would be maintained. So that's what I would recommend that we would do in that situation.
Okay, I just don't want to, it put into a place where we got cyclists and everything flying through there, and we forget it is a memorial to our war dead. This is going to affect a lot of people. I'm not against cyclists, don't get me wrong. I think it's a brilliant idea to open everything up for the knoll and so forth, but we still got to remember it is a memorial for war dead and so forth.
Yeah, and I think perhaps as part of the scheme, subject, of course, what happens during the consultation about removing the prohibition of cycling, I think perhaps we can put some additional signage at the location, making people aware that they are entering and will cycling through the memorial. So and asking, we can put some signage there for people to be careful and respectful of the area.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think it was a good point, Tim. I think people obviously want to make sure that we respect these war memorials, and I think as long as that's reflected in the consultation as well, we may get concerns from the public. I think the response you've given today shows that we are considering these matters actually, and I think that if that's reflected when we go out to consultation, I'm sure members of the public will appreciate that.
Spot on, thank you.
I've got an indication in the chamber from Councillor Lockyer. Alan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a question, Dave. Regarding the cycle paths, are we thinking of allocating specific parts of the path for cycling? Anyway, it might be in the report. I missed it. Sorry.
No, thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Lockyer, at this stage, we've got the route designed in principle. So we'll be getting into the detailed design of the scheme, and we'll be consulting further then around what those proposals will be. So in some parts of the route, it'll be shared path, and we may be able to achieve segregated walking and cycling paths in other areas. So that'll be part of the detailed design, and we'll be consulting with the communities and members and local members when we get to that stage. Just for members to be as aware as well, this is only a small part of the route. The actual active travel route will be running from the top of Kevin Syson, where the playing fields are, beyond the comprehensive school, where the cricket fields are, all the way down through Avon Valley Road, across Kimler Common, and then it diverts into the Crescent and then into the Knoll Estate over that short stretch that this report is actually dealing with today in terms of dealing with the prohibition of cycling there.
Okay, thank you. I've got indications as well now from Councillor Nathan Goodall-John. Nathan.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question from me. I was just wondering if Dave could answer, how do we identify and prioritise routes? To me, it doesn't really seem like it's a very clear and obvious priority cycling up Kimler Hill when you've got some other quick and easy wins in the town centre, perhaps. So I was just wondering how we identify and prioritise routes. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think this we addressed this question as part of the annual report of the active travel route. We've obviously got an adopted network route for the authority, and from my recollection, there are something like 500 routes that have been identified in there. At the present time, we've got no clear guidance from Welsh Government and Transport for Wales on how we prioritise those routes. So we've got a range of routes from high priority, medium and low. They are going to share a software support package or tool that will help local authorities to come forward with a prioritised set of schemes. Obviously, we will try and deliver them then based upon that reassessed prioritisation of routes, with a view to obviously securing grant to deliver those. But they will, some schemes, if I can explain, will come forward at different stages as well, because some will require the authority to obtain land from private landowners, and there may be other statutory consultees that we will need to address as part of that work as well. So you're quite right, Councillor John. At present, we are haven't been able to categorise all of those 500 routes that are currently a part of the approved network plan. Thanks. Thank you, Chair.
You happy with that response, Councillor?
Yeah, thank you both.
Excellent. Okay, I can't see any other indications on this item. So members' recommendations are listed on page 23 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Can I please have a proposer and a seconder?
I propose,
Chair.
Chair. Oh, sorry.
A second,
Thank
Chair.
you. Councillor Roslyn Davis, and was Councillor Timbo in second? Thank you. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair, as this has been supported to Cabinet.
Thank you. Okay, so I'll now move on to agenda item 8, which is the public space protection orders for Aberafan Seafront, pages 49 to 68 on the agenda pack. Officers, do you wish to add anything to the report before we go to questions from members?
Just by way of introduction, some members may recall that we used to have dog control orders down on the seafront, and they were repealed by legislation and replaced by public space protection orders. But those orders have to be renewed every 3 years, and this is the start of a consultation for proposed renewal of those orders. My colleague James Davis, the author of the report, is online. I'm sure will be happy to take any questions, Chair, that members have.
Thank you very much. I got my first indication from Councillor Suzanne Patterson. Suzanne.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. I would just like to speak in favour of renewing this order. The previous prohibitions in all their incidences have worked on the seafront to keep it safer. The only thing that I would like maybe for the officers to consider is the early or late use of the beach part for people who maybe have to go to work and they would like to walk their dogs early or late. So if that could be included, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. And I was going to come in on this point as well, and it's something I've had as one of the local members covering the beach. A lot of feedback from residents and dog walkers in the summer, in particular, that might want to go down at 6 a.m. or 10, 11 o'clock at night, and do pick up after their dogs and feel like they can't do that because the PSPOs prevent them from doing so. Whereas actually the members of the public that breach the orders anyway are on the seafront at those times. And that's the only thing I'm maybe slightly less content with in the report. And I know I flagged this with James around the consultation. I would have preferred a specific question to address that issue in the consultation. But obviously, when this does go out to consultation, as a local member, I can draw members of the public attention to that. And I think there is an option for people to put in additional comments and feedback to reflect that. But I think it would have been a little bit neater if we could have captured that, because it is a concern that it's not from a handful of members of the public. I get a lot of repeated concerns of a very similar nature that I just hope we can capture and take into account when we look at the orders.
You happy for me to come back, Chair?
Yeah, please. Thank you, James.
Yeah, I think we've discussed obviously over the past few months. That's something that I think we have considered as officers. We have done a bit of research ourselves and spoken to other coastal authorities to see if they've done similar things. Where we have had sort of that conversation where they have done something similar, they found it very difficult to manage. If you've got an enforcement officer down there, they say the cut-off time was, I don't know, 6 in the morning or whatever it was. You've got to have a bit of leeway, and I think the argument is that we don't have enforcement officers down there at that time usually, but that's something that we've discussed with Carl, who's on the call as the senior waste enforcement officer, and his team, and that's something we're going to start doing, because obviously there's two elements to it with the actual and the reason for the PSPO. There's the one, obviously, having dogs off lead on the beach when there's people there, but then there's the dog phone element. And whilst we know 99% of people are considered dog owners and they pick up after them, you do get those that aren't, and that's where the health risk comes then, in terms of leaving them on. There's not a 24-hour notice to stop them from going on their prohibition. So I think what we did is, and I take your point about a more specific question in the consultation document, but we've allowed that box for any further comments. And I think, like you have already alluded to, Chair, is that if as you as members at the beachfront are speaking to groups, and it's not just individuals, to encourage them to put that information in there, because all we're looking for today is permission to go out to consultation, and we'll be bringing a further report once we've received that consultation response and analyse that.
Thanks, James. Yeah, I appreciate that. Suzanne, did you want to come back, or were you
No,
okay?
I take that on board, and that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can't see any other indications from members on this item, so I'll take members to the recommendations on page 56 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Could I have a proposer and a seconder, please?
Happy to propose, Chair.
Councillor Tim Bowen and Ros.
I'll second that.
Thank you very much. So if members do not indicate to the contrary, I'll take it that this decision is supported to Cabinet. Do you mind just lowering your hand, Ros?
That's what I'm trying to do.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. So that has been that recommendation has been supported to Cabinet.
Thank you very much, Tom. Okay, we'll now move on to agenda item 9, which is the replacement local development plan RLDP revised delivery agreement, which is on pages 69 to 188. I think Kerry wants to introduce the report today.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Only really just to acknowledge and say that while it is disappointing to have to bring this particular report for members' consideration this morning, I think for the reasons set out within the report and the challenges that members will no doubt that we have, it is considered to be absolutely the right approach going forward to reset the clock, if you like, on the replacement LAB timetable. It's probably also worth me mentioning as well that we've been in constant dialogue with Welsh Government officials. They understand the constraints and the challenges, significant challenges that we've got, and they are supportive of what we are proposing this morning. So pending member approval of the recommendations this morning and subsequent consideration at Council, we don't anticipate any problems with Welsh Government approving the revised delivery agreement upon submission. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Kerry, for the introduction there. I've got a few indications on this item, so I'll come first to Councillor Cathy James. Cathy.
Thanks, Chair. So first of all, I don't have any objections at all to the principle of a restart. I fully understand why it's happening and it seems like a sensible solution. But I would like to know what's going to be done differently this time round so we end up with an improved outcome. So on page 70, a number of constraints are identified to available housing land, things like contamination, flood risk, infrastructure. None of that's going to change. But on page 70, the report does mention potential solutions for existing constraints. So I'd like some sort of idea of what sort of thing you're talking about there. In addition, then the call for candidate sites. Again, I'd like to know what's going to be done differently this time to make sure we get more or better submissions there, especially given that we've got a shorter time period for that call. I think it's 2 months rather than 3. Thank you.
Thanks, Cathy. Is it Lana or Talana? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, so we basically got an extra year because we were supposed to be going to preferred strategy consultation November of this year. We've now pushed it on to November of next year. So the intention is majority of the work has been done. So the team can now focus on looking at these solutions. So a number of solutions by moving the base date from 2021 to 2023, the under delivery that we've achieved from a housing perspective will obviously start from scratch again because we only built 121, 100 units and 100 again, 22, 23. With the growth levels, we were looking at building 277. So again, we can start from scratch, really. We'll do another call for candidate sites. And again, a plea to members, if you know of any land within your communities that you think could come forward for housing land, we'd like to know about those. The other thing we're looking at, there's a detailed urban capacity study that the team are looking at. They're looking community by community, looking at sort of past planning permissions if they haven't been implemented, and basically scouring the whole of the county borough. We've also we've undertaken a sub-regional analysis. So our growth work has been in partnership with Swansea. So as part of the guidance, we have to discuss with adjoining authorities with regard to the best locations for future growth. So we have been, we'd be talking to Swansea and Powys to see if you know, the growth and land that's needed aligns. So there'll be discussions there. And also we have to look at the implications of free ports, what that will mean for our county borough. So there's a lot of work that we'll need to do with regard to commuting patterns. We'll have a bit more time now to look at sort of working from home. And we're working with Transport for Wales as well, because we got some infrastructure issues with regard to the local highway network. So we're doing a strategic highway assessment to look at the impact. They've got mobile phone data, so that, you know, there's increased sort of intelligence there that we can analyse, and we've got a bit more time now. And we're also looking at sort of metro potential. So we're working with Transport for Wales, maybe looking at the metro at Coed-Darcy, maybe extending it further, looking at options, maybe Aberdeen. So we're in talks there with Transport for Wales to see the potential there. And also big sites like Coed-Darcy, for example. We've got a bit more time now to discuss with landowners, developers, to see if we can move these larger sites forward.
Okay, thanks for that response there, Lana. Cathy, did you wish to come back on any of that?
No, it's good to know that some things are going to be done slightly differently, though some of it seems to be as much around sort of perhaps altering definitions and the numbers rather than actually changing how much land is available. I suppose to a certain extent we've just got to wait and see. I agree that talking to the owners about the big sites is really important. It's great looking at individual town centre like planning permissions that haven't been acted on, but you're talking very small numbers. I think it is those large ones where there are issues that do really need to be tackled. And it's good to hear that you're talking to Transport for Wales to try and tackle some of the issues there around the infrastructure, because obviously if we're looking to develop more up into the valleys, it's absolutely crucial that we have got the transport there, and that we're not just relying on on people getting in their cars, that there is some sort of alternative. And I know a lot of that isn't in our gift, but it's good the conversation is happening. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Cathy. I think Kerry wants to come in as well now.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I mean, Lana's given a very comprehensive answer, but the only thing I would add is that in terms of the candidate site process, and this is the discussion we've been having with Welsh Government officials, we've been looking at how we can review the threshold of evidence that prospective applicants or sort of those that are submitting the expressions of interest for the candidate sites can submit, because I think what has happened is the increased threshold in terms of the level of evidence needed to provide and support a submission has effectively, arguably, turned people off submitting sites. So we're looking at various thresholds of sizes of sites and how we can maybe reduce the burden, if you like, at this early stage, so that we can get more sites through the door, so that we can assess those submissions. And that's something, again, that has not been unique to Neath and Talbot. This has been seen across Wales. So it's something that we'll be looking at. So hopefully that will encourage more submissions when we redo the candidate site stage. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thanks, Kerry. That's a really interesting point, actually. And I think that upfront risk from some of those landowners was definitely off-putting. Nicola Pierce wants to come in now, Director of Environment. Nicola.
Yeah, just not wishing to extend the discussion too much, but I think it's also important, and Lana touched on it very briefly when she spoke. We've got a lot of exciting economic development opportunities coming into Neath Talbot, and as a consequence of that, the developer, the peace of mind developers will have in terms of having a market for their product will increase. Now, at the time when we went out on the candidate sites process previously, we didn't know about the Freeport opportunity, and arguably there are sites or developments that are going ahead in our valley communities which were also unknown in that particular time. Now, we are in a slightly different position now where we are further progressed in terms of the delivery of those developments and those opportunities. So that will give confidence to developers that there is a market for their housing should they wish to invest in Neath Talbot. So we need to sort of grab that opportunity to give them an additional opportunity to put in those candidate sites, which previously they may have thought were unviable. So I just wanted to point that out. So developer confidence should have improved since we went out to candidate sites previously.
Thank you. That was a very important point to make. Appreciate that. I've got another indication from Councillor Suzanne Paddison. Suzanne.
Thank you, Chair. And I was remiss earlier of not thanking you for allowing me to come to the meeting because I'm not a member of the committee. So thank you for that. The question I have is regarding our involvement in and impact within the Corporate Joint Committee, Subcommittee on Planning. So we are going to be delayed in our LDP, and I'm perfectly aware that we already have an LDP which they can rely on, but of course it's going to make a delay in all of our all of these developments that Nicola has just explained. That's not going to be our official sort of point at the moment, and it's going to be delayed for 2 years. So could you explain what the impacts or maybe not impacts on the CJC subcommittee will be? Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. I think Kerry's going to take this one. Kerry.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Paddison, for the question. It is certainly a merited one. I mean, all I would say in response is, and I think I have touched on this in terms of previous discussions on the SDP, they are essentially separate processes. They are 2 tiers of development plan. And you will have heard me comment before and previously about the fact that whilst there are currently delays in terms of SDP development because of broadly the resource issue, the finances available, Welsh Government have made a very, very strong stance that local planning authorities cannot stop the preparation of their local development plans because they are essentially different tiers of development planning across the planning function in Wales. So they're not, one doesn't, whilst they are linked, one doesn't directly affect the other. They are effectively being produced in parallel. All I would add is that, again, I've mentioned this previously, is that a lot of the joint work that's been undertaken across the region, a lot of the evidence-based studies that Lana has already mentioned this morning are being done on a joint basis. So there are sort of consistent methodologies being applied across local authority boundaries. We are looking at the broader than local issues, and a lot of the pieces of work that are ongoing not only support the LDP development, but they are providing the building blocks ultimately for the SDP as they are going forward. There's always going to be a challenge because you've got now 3 tiers of development plan in Wales. There's always going to be that significant challenge in terms of how they align in terms of their timescales and review timetables and how they all align. Obviously, the SDP and the LDPs have to be in conformity with the national plan, Future Wales. So again, I've covered those points previously, but I know there is actually a meeting, isn't there, of the CJC subcommittee on Monday, which Lana and I will be attending. So maybe we can explore some of these issues in more detail on Monday. But essentially, the message to give you this morning is what we are discussing this morning does not directly affect the SDP programme.
Thank you, Kerry. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Kerry. Okay, I can't see any other indications from members. So I will draw members' attention to the recommendations, which are listed on pages 74 and 75 of the Cabinet Agenda Pack. Could I please have a proposer and a seconder?
Happy to propose.
Councillor Cathy James.
I'll second, Chair.
Thank you, Ros. If members don't indicate to the contrary, then I will take it this decision is supported to Cabinet.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. Therefore, this recommendation has been supported to Cabinet.
Excellent, thank you, Tom. So we'll now move on to agenda item 10, which is Parking Review 2023, which is on pages 189 to 228 of our papers. Before we take any questions or go into this item, I just want to outline some of the background just for the benefit of any members of the public and press that might be attending this meeting today. I think it's important to stress that as a committee, we've undertaken a significant amount of scrutiny on these proposals this year, starting with the Task and Finish group, where we looked at the proposals in detail and produced a series of recommendations. And then back in July, we spent, I think, several hours actually of scrutiny going through the final report in detail. Again, members at that meeting did raise significant concerns around the impact of these proposals on businesses, residents, the impact on disabled people, and around the extent of consultation that's been undertaken on the proposals as well. And following that meeting in July, Cabinet members opted to defer the decision. So the decision on the item was expected to be made today by Cabinet members following this meeting. I think it's important to stress that members of this committee do not make the decision, so the decision will be taken in the Cabinet Board meeting following this meeting. The report in front of us today is substantially the same as the one in July in terms of the parking proposals. It does acknowledge some of the concerns that we raised in the last meeting, and in particular the integrated impact assessment has now been updated to reflect the concerns from members around the impact on disability, so that is welcome, though no changes to the proposals themselves have been made as a result of that. So what we won't be doing today is repeating all the questions from the last scrutiny meeting. They've already been asked, answered and responded to it in the report. So I would recommend that anyone watching this has got an interest in this item looks back at that scrutiny meeting from the 28th of July if they wish to sort of see the scrutiny that's taken place previously. Today we'll be asking any further questions that we've identified now pre-briefing, and we'll be hearing as well from some of the local members from the town centres and areas affected. So before I go to those questions, do officers wish to add anything to the report?
Nothing further to add to the report, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, so my first question is from Councillor Stephanie Grimshaw. Steph.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, team, for allowing me to speak without my camera on due to circumstances. I just want to raise points that I made in the previous scrutiny, but with the understanding that these haven't been addressed. So I know my colleagues are also going to speak about this. As a councillor who covers part of the town centre area, I was concerned with these parking charges and the request that we raise, we find a way to raise funds through this. I know Viva Port Talbot in particular are working incredibly hard to revitalise the town centre. And one issue I raised in the previous scrutiny meeting that I don't feel has been addressed has been the consultation. So we had a discussion, again, please watch back on that discussion about how the legal kind of minimum consultation wasn't appropriate for this level of change for businesses in the area. I'm incredibly disappointed after that lengthy discussion that no change has been made on that decision. And in addition, I'm quite shocked actually that this paperwork says that the changes will have no impact on disabled people. I think that really impacts the equalities and protected characteristics. I'm really shocked. So yes, I might have another question depending on how the conversation goes, but I think it's very important considering we are representatives of the locality that those points are raised again in this meeting and the disappointment that these hasn't been addressed.
Okay, thank you, Steph. Just come back, Dave.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Councillor Grimshaw. As we previously set out, there will be 2 statutory consultations linked with the increase in the tariff charges for the off-street car parks, and secondly, there will be the statutory consultation undertaken on any amendments to the on-street traffic regulatory orders, which the consultees will have an opportunity to respond upon. Any objections that we receive in connection with those 2 elements of the report will need to be reported back to the Cabinet Scrutiny and Cabinet Board for future consideration and decision. In terms of the town centre, perhaps free Christmas days that have been debated at the last meeting, we explained that they were a discretionary option for the council to offer those days. And what we advised was that the town centre managers would undertake consultations with the traders direct on which days they would like the free 5-day of parking offer to be provided, and to take on board their feedback in relation to that and how they would like to align them with any events that they're organising across the calendar year in that respect. In terms of the IIA, we have made an amendment to the IIA, and we're not saying that it doesn't affect disabled residents or visitors to our centres. We said that it may affect them, and having taken the advice from our equalities officer in the corporate centre, they were satisfied that it reflected the officer's position contained within the IIA. Having said that, if members wish to make further commentary around that, then there is an opportunity for the Cabinet to consider that, and anything like of that nature could be reflected in the IIA. So that's all I wanted to say, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm gonna move on now to Councillor Freegard, and then I'll come back to members. That's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, a number of things have already been raised that I may address after as well, if I may, Chair. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on behalf of myself and Councillor Rahman this morning. As local ward councillors, we're very disappointed with the parking review itself and its recommendations. The council, Viva Talbot and other partners have worked very hard to promote the town with the aim to increase the footfall and provide much needed income. We feel that this report actually goes against the good work carried out to date and undermines the effort of increasing footfall. We understand that there are budget pressures, but this proposal does not justify the wider implications on the local economy across the whole of Talbot, and that includes the beach area as well. We are obviously against any increase in charges, but I think we need to think about the bigger picture here, and some of the things that the officers have mentioned, including Nicola has said about the support that you give for developers coming in, you know, to entice developers coming in. And I think we need to be thinking about giving the same kind of support and have the same ethos for the retail unit and the businesses down the beach and in the town centre and surrounding areas. We are very disappointed with all that. I think that popping down to somewhere to collect something or pick something up is no longer going to be an option. And I think that a lot of people just pop into town, that won't be done. And I think that we need to be thinking about the impact on blue badge holders. I think that the applications for blue badges will increase enormously because we may not be giving access as they have now, where I can see people shaking their heads, but down the beach where people can easily get onto the pavement or things from their cars directly, where there are no parking bays. And now they're going to be designated parking bays, apart from costs and other things that are mentioned in the report. I think that people who are on the cusp of perhaps applying for a blue badge and thought, oh, they wouldn't bother, will now apply, and rightly so as well if they do need to. Given that, I should now like to read a statement from Richard Jones, the chair of Viva Talbot Board. On behalf of Viva Talbot, the town's business improvement district, which represents all the town centre traders of Talbot, I am making this following statement. With the current low level of footfall and challenging trading conditions in all three town centres in the borough, Viva Talbot urges all council members not to increase parking tariffs, but instead implement a realistic or free parking tariff which encourages residents, shoppers as well as visitors to use the underused town centre car parks. This week, we have lost a major high street retailer from both Neath and Talbot town centres, with many jobs lost and two very large retail spaces left vacant. Unless action is taken now to support the town centres, this could be just the beginning. Council members need to develop an affordable parking proposal which aims to support the remaining traders within the towns and hopefully encourage new investment as well. Neighbouring boroughs are already offering free or discounted parking to attract more footfall to their town centres. This, along with free out-of-town parking, is having a detrimental impact on Neath Talbot town centre, and a competitive approach is now needed. The current parking situation at the moment is not value for money, as it's far too high compared to other borough tariffs, with car parks barely achieving a 10% occupancy rate during the week. This is a ridiculous situation, and as it is clearly not supporting trade and definitely not achieving a realistic income for the authority. We would like to see the introduction of free parking days, an affordable two-tier parking tariff of £1 for an hour or just £2 for the whole day, as has proved successful in other neighbouring authorities. This should be implemented in a fair way across the three towns of the borough. Action is now needed to make Port Talbot an attractive town centre destination, which will impact in a positive way to both shoppers' attitudes towards town centres, as well as supporting and encouraging trade. If any officers or cabinet members would like to discuss the issue outlined here and have some further detailed discussions, Viva Talbot Board are more than happy to engage further. We would like to see a thriving community, a local economy, thriving local economy, and parking arrangements are fundamental to achieving that. All bid levy payers are totally opposed to any further increases to an already high parking tariff. And that's the statement from the Viva Board. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Freakin. I'm going to bring in Councillor Lockyer before I bring officers back, because I suspect we're going to be on a similar theme for some of these comments and questions. Councillor Lockyer.
Thank you, Chair, and it was remiss of me not to thank you earlier on for allowing me to speak in the meeting, as I'm not a member. Yeah, I would like to speak on behalf of the traders of Neath. I think Richard has made some very, very valid points which apply across the three towns as he made those points. All right, nobody likes change. Nobody wants to see an increase in parking charges, but what we've got to be careful of, I think, is that we're stopping the, and I think Sharon alluded to this, the people who drop in quickly to buy things, just the one-off things. That low tariff for the first hour would be great for people to do that. And I think the traders feel they've not really been consulted as much as they could have been. Any increase to parking charges is obviously going to affect them. When we talk about disabled parking, of course, disabled users as well, because they pay the parking charges unless on street parking. But but certainly, you know, it's got to be really, I think it needs to be rethought. The Christmas period is essential to them. I think that's the bit that gets them through the January period. I know within the report there's been suggestions of having a free parking after Christmas to encourage people to come back in, but I think most traders rely on the build-up and the extra revenue generated before Christmas to see them through that January period. I'm not sure that you know, that January period of free parking would offset that as it's been doing so far. So really appealing to the cabinet, I suppose, who's going to make this decision, to really rethink this, because traders are on the up as it is. You know, we've got many, as per Talbot and as Pondicherry, but certainly I know Port Talbot and us are quite aligned in terms of empty shops suddenly appearing. Queen Street's becoming a bit of a ghost town in Neath, which I never thought I'd see. We're lucky we still got Marks Spencer's, but again, we've lost Wilco's. With new units still not being occupied as yet, you know, how are we going to attract new businesses to come into Neath when we're basically trying to stop people coming into Park? I mean, it's beyond reckoning, really. So the appeal is from the traders to really rethink this, and they need all the help they can, as does Port Talbot and Pondicherry, in encouraging footfall into the towns. And I don't think this as it stands really works. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Alan. And given your sort of statement and appeal there, sort of reference the cabinet member, I wonder if Wyndham does want to make any response at this stage in the scrutiny meeting.
Not at this stage.
Councillor Hurley.
Yeah, only in defence, I'm fairly new in my role in economic growth. When I first came in, I did immediately contact Viva Talbot, but I'm still waiting for a reply back, because obviously when Councillor Grimshaw brought up the issues of consultation, you know, I felt that perhaps I could get a point of view off them. Obviously, I've heard it now off the director, but yeah, I did try and contact and didn't receive anything back, but I'll keep trying. Thank you. And obviously, on my front, I want to get closer to both communities in all our town centres, so we can get feedback and we can get prior feedback to anything that we're going to try and put forward. So I think it comes back down to better communication as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hurley. I'm going to bring in Councillor Suzanne Paddison as the last indication we've got from questions. Thanks.
Yes, as speaking as a ward member for a beachfront ward. Yeah, I concur with previous speakers about in what they've just said. I would like to say about the effect on disabled people, because it's been pointed out in previous scrutiny and that there are times of the day when people can access. However, a lot of disabled people are waiting on appointments for people to come in and have treatments or visits or whatever because of their disablement, and therefore their day is not their own and they can only go when they can go. So the taking away of the 3 hour spots where they may for their health benefits just want a quick 10-minute walk because they can't walk further than that is going to be severely affected, and they are mostly, I'll say mostly because not all, on benefits of a fixed income. So I would urge cabinet members to think really long and hard about the effect of taking away the 3 hour spaces on the beach for the development of our mental health of people who are disabled in a silent way, in that their depression stops them going out and they can't always choose what part of the day they might want to go out and have a bit of fresh air. So I will leave that there. But on a separate note, I too have had representations from businesses on the seafront, and anything that interrupts with the drop-in effort part of using shops on the seafront, cafes, you know, kiosks, whatever they are going to be severely affected if you can't just stop off for 10 minutes, go and get what you want, and then come back without incurring a charge. So those traders have also been worried then about the effect on footfall. So just wanted Cabinet to take those things into account. And also the coalition did say earlier, previously, that fees and charges would rise from about 5 to 10%. But some of these are 100%. And, you know, it's not within most people's budget. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Before I go to any responses from officers or Cabinet members, I just want to check whether any other members of the committee wish to ask a question at this point, because we've had a little bit of a discussion, but I can't see any indications. Do any officers want to come back and respond? Nicola? Nicola Pierce, Director of Environment.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just going to give a general response to some of the issues that have been raised, and then I'll, if I'm wrong on any of the responses I provide or additional detail is required, then I'm going to rely on my two colleagues to my left to come in and either correct me or add to the information that I'm providing. So I do understand that it's a difficult time for people to afford additional charges or any increases in charges that the local authority or any organisation put in place. But the fact does remain that we have a significant budget problem within the authority, and we are looking at all ways possible to increase income, reduce costs, to ensure that we can still provide the level of service that the local authority are currently providing, if not a better level of service. So it doesn't come easy for officers or members in this authority to recommend that charges are increased. However, we're in that difficult position where we have no alternative. And I think the Task and Finish group and previous scrutiny committees have acknowledged that the vast majority of the proposals within this paper were supported. And we also have to take account of the fact that time changes, you know, or circumstances change over time. And there was a time back in, well, prior to 2010 where we didn't impose any charges on people wishing to utilise our car parks. So because of period of austerity, which started around that period of time, that's when we had to start charging the public to park in our car parks, because prior to that it was free, and that was a very difficult decision that the authority had to make. But we did, that decision was made, and it enabled us to maintain our car parks. It's indicated within the car parking report that we have got significant maintenance backlogs because we are not securing sufficient income to address the maintenance costs and the management costs associated with the service. And it's also indicated in the report that people value good quality services and good quality products, and they will pay for it if it is of a reasonable or good quality. Now, at the moment, some of our car parks are not necessarily maintained to the quality that we would like. And we're also doing, separate to this report, we're also preparing another report which identifies what parking provision we have across the county borough, what use of those car parks there is, and therefore what demand there is, and whether there's a potential for us to downsize the number of car parks we have and potentially utilise them for alternative purposes. So that piece of work is going on in the background. So there's lots of pieces of work that will inform income generation opportunities, and also how our town centres and our other destinations, including the seafront, could be supported and improved going forward to increase footfall and increase the attractiveness of them. One of those pieces of work is around place plans. We are developing place plans not just for the 3 town centres within Neath, but for also some of the district centres, to try and identify what regeneration opportunities we could look into further and secure funding for, to make them more attractive, to bring more people into the town centres, because it's the attractiveness of the town centres and the opportunities that are available to shoppers or visitors within those areas that actually increase footfall. So there's a number of things that improve footfall, not just the parking charges. And as I say, place plans are being developed. We're also looking at how we can make town centres more viable and improve the vitality of those town centres through the local development plan, which is currently being reviewed and which you had a report on earlier. We are aware that some of our town centres are quite significant in size, and there are vacant properties interspersed between the shops, and there are also residential properties appearing within our town centres as well. So we are looking at the opportunity possibly to look again at the size and position of our town centres so that we can concentrate activities within a smaller area so that there is more vitality within those town centres. And that's a piece of work that we're doing as part of the local development plan. So there's lots of pieces of work going on in the background. We've got a town centre team. They are small because we can't afford to employ additional people within that team. And we are currently restructuring that team and looking at the terms of reference associated with them and the priorities that they need to concentrate on. They are working with the traders, and in terms of the Talbot Town Centre, they are working with the BID to try and identify what events or activities bring people into the town centres and what have been effective through analysis of those events. So that work is going on in the background to try and make our town centres more of a destination, more of an attraction. In terms of the seafront, we have secured funding to undertake a seafront strategy, which again will look at what works we need to undertake, what management we need to put in place to make our seafront more attractive to visitors and to make them dwell in those areas longer and spend money within the local facilities that are available, such as the restaurants, cafes, ice cream parlours, so on. So that piece of work is going on. So there is lots of other activity that is being undertaken to try and improve the attractiveness of these destinations throughout the county borough. But as I said very early on in this discussion, we have to accept that we cannot afford to manage our car parks on the income that we are currently securing. We need to increase that income so we can invest back in those facilities that we want to take or continue to maintain in the longer term. In terms of other councils, mention was made that other councils are operating free parking. Now, it does say in the report what the charges are in our neighbouring authorities, and we understand that it's only Llanelli Town Centre that have an alternative offer compared to Neath Talbot. So it isn't quite the case that we are charging more than other authorities. We have benchmarked our charges against those authorities, and there is information in the report to say that. I appreciate the reference to blue badges and the fact that that will increase. Obviously, there are strict criteria relating to whether or not a blue badge can be authorised, and should any member of the public have a disability that makes them eligible for a blue badge, then I would encourage them to submit an application, because they are if their disability complies with the blue badge criteria, then they are eligible for a blue badge. So if they are eligible and they want to apply, then I would encourage them to do so. I appreciate that reference has been made to bid payers, and all the bid payers are opposed to the increased charge within Talbot. Well, we are a bids payer in Neath Talbot Council, and we pay towards the annual fees that are secured by Viva Talbot. And one of the proposals to have more flexibility in terms of the free parking days, not just the run up to Christmas and the period after Christmas, but have more flexibility in choosing those days, actually came from the bid. It was a proposal that they put forward to officers. I believe they put forward directly to our chief exec and possibly the leader. So that came as a consequence of an approach from them whereby they wanted more freedom in identifying those free car parking days, so that it wasn't just restricted to one time of the year. So we're actually responding to that request. In terms of down in the seafront and the disabled the parking for disabled people, they can still park for 2 hours free within the car park in laybys on the seafront outside of the car parking areas. Oh, sorry, this is where I'm going wrong and I'm going to be corrected. So sorry, I'll hand over to Steve.
Yeah. Echelon car parking at the seafront is blue badge is time limited at the moment, and the proposal, even if we charged going forward, blue badge holders would be exempt the time limit in the order in any case. We've actually, and the charge. So blue badge holders, if they park in the bays on the seafront, would be exempt the time limit, exempt the payment. So if they pop in down there, they do not need to use the car parks. If they get a bay there, they can stay there all day. Yeah.
So that was even better than I was actually saying. So thank you, Steve, for correcting me. So if the recommendations are accepted, disabled people with a blue badge can continue to park in the car parking bays on the seafront, and they do not have to pay a fee associated with that parking. So it actually benefits them compared to more able-bodied persons. I think that was the vast majority, if not all, of the issues that were raised by the members. But if I've missed something, I'm sure my colleagues will pick it up, and I'm sure members will correct me as well. So thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Nicola. Very comprehensive response as always. A few hands have gone up, and I just want to make one comment myself from the chair before I go to those members, and that was just around the comment you made around the committee sort of broadly supporting the vast majority of the proposals through the work we've undertaken. I think it's just worth sort of clarifying that point, in the sense that when we undertook the task and finish piece of work, I was very clear as the chair to outline to the committee that the decision to raise the income had already been taken, and we should work within that when making our recommendations in order to try and make the best of the situation that we find ourselves in. And that is the way that the committee in the main is engaged in this process. It does not necessarily mean that committee members support or are happy with the principle of increasing the parking charges, but I think we've accepted that in the sense of the budget already agreed that was likely to be inevitable. So I just wanted to clarify that point just to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, sorry, thank you. I accept that, and I think, as I mentioned earlier on, as officers within the authority, we don't want to be in the position where we were putting fees up either, but we acknowledge that the income required to manage and maintain these facilities makes it a necessary requirement. And we as officers, we use the facilities as well within the town centres as well as on the seafront. So we're actually recommending that the car parking charges go up slightly, and that will in turn affect us as well as wider members of the public. And I think Dave wanted to come in as well.
Thank you, Nicola. Thank you, Chair. And I just wanted to say a thank you to the Scrutiny Committee as well, because a lot of positive feedback came out of that process. And there are work streams that we are going to continue to take forward as a result of that scrutiny process. But even though, as Councillor Percy stated, the budget had been set at the beginning of the year, even with these proposals, we are still £25,000 short of meeting that target. And during the year, we've had added financial pressures. So as Nicola mentioned, and none of us want to increase fees and charges on any of our services right across the council, but the financial predicament that we face as a council, not only in year but in future years, is going to become very, very challenging for us. But I would like to, as I say, thank the chair and for the working group of members for their help and support. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Okay, I've got a few indications. I'm quite keen that we try and wrap the discussion up a little bit so we don't end up in a sort of lengthy back and forth. Ros, you did pop your hand up. I'm not sure if you wanted to come in. Ros, you're on mute.
I was just going to state that the towns that we visit in Powys, Carmarthen, Pembroke, Monmouthshire, they've put their charges up months ago. So, you know, every county council seems to have to put the parking charges up, to be honest.
Okay, thanks, Ros. What was the next? Okay, I've got Councillor Freegard, and then I'll go to the Cabinet member as well.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it is really encouraging to hear all the stuff going on in the background, Nicola, but we're here today. I'm specifically thinking about the car parking charges. We're not getting the occupancy now. So you're talking about maintaining and developing the car parks to a higher standard, but we're not getting the occupancy now. We're going to have to spend the money on that. I'm just wondering whether this is the right course of action for that. In talking about other authorities, I believe RCT, they own in only 3 towns or 4 towns possibly in RCT, they charge for parking. It's all free. And I can name a number of other towns in different authorities where the parking is absolutely free. And in one particular town, I think it's Whitchurch in Cardiff, that's free. There's a car park in the town that's free. And that entices people to drop in, come in at any time and spend more money in the town centre. So I understand about the pressures and I know that we need to increase and get revenue from somewhere else, but I really don't think this is the right course of action. It's really promising that we are trying to communicate with Viva and the retail businesses there, because they have said that they had absolutely no engagement whatsoever before this parking review was completed. And I think it's really good to engage with people to get their views so that, as you were saying, we could be informed and make decisions and having the information. So I think that's really important, especially when after last Christmas, the traders actually brought back the fact that they would have liked free parking far sooner than Christmas, because Christmas month they would come in anyway. It's before that they needed the free parking. But I think perhaps if you think about more free parking days, that might go a long way to help. I think 5 days throughout the year for free parking, isn't sufficient when you look at some other authorities. So I think free parking, okay, we may be equivalent on the parking charges in some areas or want to increase that, but we need to look at the times where there are free parking. And I think a really important point was made here today from Councillor Patterson about the free hour, where people with mental health issues, gain so much from that. And I think all the comments that have been made this morning, I think if you take those on board, it would be really helpful. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freegan. I'm going to take final comments I should add from members before any responses come back. So I'll go to Councillor Patterson, Councillor Carpenter, then I'll come to Councillor Hurley after that, if that's okay. Councillor Patterson, Suzanne.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I do take on board that people with blue badges won't be affected to the degree, but there are plenty of people who do not qualify who would be affected, and I'll just leave that there. And then the last comment I would make is that I think the term slightly increase parking charges was used by an officer, I can't remember which one, but 100% is not slight increase. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Councillor Carpenter, Wayne.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say, nobody wants to see our town centres thrive more than all of us. I'm sure we want to see that happen. But I think we've got to face the reality. I can't speak for Talbot, I can't speak for Pontardawe, but I believe that in Neath we got one of the finest multi-stories in the whole of Wales. Believe me, if you go to Cardiff, you'll see something very, very different. In terms of us charging more than other authorities, as Nicola has said, that's not true. Go and try and park in Mumbles these days and see how much they will charge. But I want to say this, if we are going to see car parks of that standard and also to maintain others and bring it up to that standard, then we've got to face realities. In the Task and Finish group, Dave Griffiths mentioned how much it would be to clean
the multi-storey in Neath, and it's astounding how much it's costing us in maintenance and keeping this standard. So whilst I'm very much for seeing how town centres thrive, I'm also aware of the reality of the situation, that if we want to see good car parking facilities, which also are an attraction to our towns, I've got to say, then we have to, unfortunately, have to pay the price for this maintenance and improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Wayne. Councillor Hurley, did you want to come in?
Yeah, it's just going back to footfall, and probably the biggest footfall we've seen is on the regen with Neath, you know, where Boots were recording record figures once the development opened. So I think, you know, the commitment that is shown by the regen team with the places planning, the town centre managers, I'm, you know, personally going to be committed to try, and the biggest way to get the footfall up is to improve the town centres, specifically for Councillor Lockyer. I've spoken already to Pete, specifically to Queen Street, some of the property owners there, you know, to try and get things moving there as well. So it is a commitment to try and improve, and hopefully that will increase footfall, and then everyone benefits. So thank you.
Thank you for those points, Councillor Hurley. Councillor Carpenter, is that legacy hand?
Yeah, sorry, Chair.
No problem at all. Okay, final comments from officers before we move to the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just coming back on some of the comments made and potential questions, and reference was made to Rhondda and Taff and how some of their car parks impose charges, whereas others are free. And we also have free car parks within Neath but not in the town centres, but we have them up in Skewin and Glenneath, and we have them in other destinations throughout the county borough. So we do have an element of free car parking. So we are possibly similar in that respect. In terms of the Christmas parking, as I said earlier on, it was as a consequence of comments were made by Viva that we should have more flexibility, because they didn't want them all to be concentrated in that run up to Christmas and after Christmas, which is currently the case. So we will be consulting with Viva and the Town Council in Neath and in Pontardawe, as well as the traders via our town centre management team, to identify when is the best time to support those town centres, whether it be in the run-up to Christmas or any other time of year. So that consultation will be undertaken through this process. In terms of staying on the free car parking side of things, our neighbouring authority, Swansea, actually have removed all free car parking as part of their plans to deliver a balanced budget. So we're not proposing to go that far. But we do have to make the difficult decisions, as we've indicated earlier, of having to increase charges as recommended in various parts of this report, and impose charges where they are currently not in place. It's not something we do lightly, and as the report indicates towards the end, we will be reviewing the effectiveness and the impacts of all of these decisions within 6 months of it being implemented. So if it's not working, as part of that process, we will understand what's not working, and we'll have the opportunity to make amendments to ensure that it's far more effective and minimises the impact upon those wanting to visit town centres and destinations throughout the county borough. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Nicola. Did any officers want to add anything else? Okay, thank you. I'm going to take a minor liberty as the chair just to come back on one point, which is I think I understand where Viva would have been coming from in wanting flexibility, but I think we do have to acknowledge that the report is proposing reducing, I think, 17 days down to 5. And I'm sure that wasn't the intention when Viva Talbot made that representations. I just think it's really important to clarify that, because I'm sure they wouldn't want to reduce the free parking days when they ask for that flexibility. Okay. So what I'll do now is I'll take members to the recommendations on pages 206 to 209 of the agenda pack. So can I please have a proposer and a seconder? Oh, Ros, did you want to come in before we do the vote?
Well, to be fair, we need to balance the budget, and I don't think we've got a choice, to be honest, rather than raise the parking fees in the county borough.
Okay, thanks for your comments, Sarah. So are you proposing the recommendation? So you're on mute, Dros.
I'm switching that on. Yes, I'm proposing the recommendation.
Thank you, Ros.
Recommendation, Chair.
Is that Councillor Bowen?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so just to make it clear for this vote, what we'll do, we'll ask first for any indications for members who wish to abstain, and then we'll work through that way. So if any members wish to abstain on the vote, could you please raise your hands now?
I see no abstentions, Chair.
Thank you. And any members who wish to vote against the recommendation, please raise your hands now. Yeah, could members just keep their hands up a second while we do the count? Okay, and if members could just lower their hands. Councillor Grimshaw, you able to look? There we are, fantastic. And then
Yes, sorry.
members, that's no problem. Members in favour of the recommendation, please raise your hands. Yeah, can you raise your, there we are, I can see that, thank you. Members, we're just clarifying the attendance list and everything just before we announce the outcome of the recommendation. Thanks.
Members, when we've just reviewed the numbers, it doesn't add up to everyone having voted. So we're going to need to redo the vote again. Obviously, for members at home, can you please ensure that you raise your hand for either an abstention, a vote for, or a vote against? So your electronic hand, not your physical hand, if that's okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to run that again.
Chair,
So,
could I come in here? I'd have to hold my hand up because I can't get the technique to work.
okay, Councillor Penry,
I should hold my hand up in front of the screen.
if can you just verbally indicate how you're proposing to vote, just so we can. How are you proposing to vote for the
No,
voting against?
against.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. We'll note that down and then we'll run through the process, and just in case we miss you. Right, so if any members wish to abstain on the vote, could you raise your electronic hands, speak up, or raise your hand in the chamber?
I see none, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Members who wish to vote against the recommendation, could you raise your hand electronically, in person? We've got you, Sheila. Okay, if could members please lower their hands. Thank you. And then members who wish to vote for the recommendation, could you please raise your hands? And if you're unable to do that, can you make yourself known?
So members, we've got 4 hands there, but there's still 2 members that haven't voted. Sorry, members. I think what might be best is if I go through everybody's names individually, just to clarify, because we do seem to have another discrepancy. So my apologies for this. So if I could just ask Councillor Tim Bowen first of all, which way?
Sorry, Tom. Can I just interrupt you there? We can't call members' names because that would become a recorded vote. So can we just ask members to vote again?
Right.
And can we just make sure that we record the votes and make sure they tally up? If we can go through that process again, please, Tom. Thank you.
Certainly. My apologies,
Unless
everyone.
they want a recorded vote.
Sorry, Chair, can we have a recorded vote, please?
Yeah, I've got a proposal for a recorded vote. Do I need to?
I'll second,
can I have
Chair.
Seconded by Councillor Grimshaw. Okay, if any members are against a recorded vote, could you please indicate now? Okay, fantastic. We can do a recorded vote then. That'll be much easier, I think. Tom,
If we could take a very brief adjournment just to prepare for the recorded vote. I do apologise. We'll only be about 10 minutes, and then we should be able to recommence. So just need to prepare everything and the script for that. If you could bear with me one moment.
Chat. Anyone, please?
Try sending him a WhatsApp message, Nathan. You might notice his phone.
Yeah, well, the thing is, the only reason I want to come in is because I got a meeting at 1:30, so I need to leave, so they need to hurry this up. If they want a recorded vote or everyone to be here.
Yeah, I've
Can you
got a
hear me,
similar
Nathan?
issue.
Okay, we'll try and get this sorted ASAP, members.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, members, we're going to run through that vote now, nice and quickly and hopefully accurately, and get this recommendation sorted out. So I'm going to hand over now to Democratic Services to take us through. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So I understand that a recorded vote has been proposed and seconded, and that members have agreed to the recorded vote this morning. I also understand that the recommendation has been proposed and seconded, and we will now move to the vote. So the process we will go through, I will call all members individually. I will ask you to confirm if you are voting for, against, or abstaining. If you could please clearly indicate your vote. Once we come to the conclusion of the vote, I will then let members know the outcome of the recommendation. So Councillor Percy.
Against.
Councillor Freegard.
Against.
Councillor Bowen.
For.
Councillor Penry.
Against.
Councillor James.
Against.
Councillor Grimshaw.
Against.
Councillor Williams. Against. Councillor Carpenter.
For.
Councillor Davis.
Obliged for the recommendation.
And Councillor Goldup-John.
Oh.
Can you just confirm that, Councillor Goldup-John? I didn't quite catch you.
For.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just bear with me one moment while I tally up the votes. Thank you, members. So I can confirm there were 6 against and 4 for the recommendation. So the recommendation is not supported, Cabinet Board.
Okay, thanks everyone for your patience while we went through that process there. So that concludes our items that we're scrutinising for today's meeting. We're not scrutinising the private items 13 and 14. Are we taking a 10-minute break before the Cabinet Board? So any officers, sorry? Okay, yeah, so 10-minute break now. We'll come back for 22 for the Cabinet Board. So any members or officers online waiting for that meeting, please join in 10 minutes. Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much, everyone.
Diolch pawb.
Thank you all.
Hwyl.